Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Saurabh from Singapore, and I welcome you to yet another edition of the Vihangam Yoga Global Online Satsang. Over the last 3 episodes of VYGOS, we have been discussing the 3S framework of Vihangam Yoga. That is Seva or service, Sadhana or meditation, and Satsang or the company of the truth and the truthful. Once again, hearty welcome to today's satsang. Our topic of today, Swadhyay, is a Sanskrit term which probably has several connotations. It could mean different things to different people depending upon their levels of mental and spiritual evolution. To my own limited understanding, Swadhyay is something that helps me in staying on course towards my life's objectives. To discuss various aspects of this term Swadhyay today and its implications for our lives and beyond, we have a very erudite panel. Our first panelist has logged in from Kenya. He is a certified public accountant with over 15 years of management consultancy and assurance role experience with international consulting firms. Please welcome the avid Vihangam Yoga practitioner, Mr. Simant Prakash.
Thank you, Saurabh.
Thank you, Simantji, for being here today. Our second panelist today is an expert at actuarial valuation and has been advising life insurance companies on their reinsurance strategies for over 13 years. Although he is based in Singapore, he misses no opportunity to spread the light of spirituality in the region. Even as we speak, he is already in Malaysia over the weekend and is ready to embark towards distant palm oil plantations in the remote hinterlands of Malaysia to conduct yogasanas or physical exercises, pranayams or breath exercises, and dhyan or meditation. Please welcome this shining beacon of spirituality in South Asia, Mr. Subhash Chandra.
Thank you very much, Saurabh for a nice introduction. I am very much delighted and grateful to VYGOS to be on this forum to speak and share my views.
Thank you, Subhash. So as we begin the deliberations for today, may we request the audience to send in their thoughts, questions, or comments at www.slido.com, slido.com/VYGOS. Or you could even WhatsApp them to an American number +1 646 653 4926. So the WhatsApp number again is +1 646 653 4926. Your messages will be addressed by the panel right here during this session itself. So may I now turn to you, Subhash, for your thoughts on the topic of discussion for today. My question to you is, what does Swadhyay mean literally? And what is the difference between, say, Adhyayan and Swadhyay? And the third part of this question is, does Swadhyay include self-introspection?
Thank you, Saurabh for this question. This word Swadhyay, just to elaborate and explain things from the beginning. Swadhyay is a Sanskrit word which is made up of a combination of two words, Swa and Adhyay. Swa means self. As we have been described many times, the word Swarved on this forum also, which is a combination of two words, Swa plus Ved, where Swa means self and Ved means the knowledge. Similarly, Swadhyay, Swa means self and Adhyay means the study. But if we talk about literal meaning, Swadhyay, which simply says self-study or probably understanding the self, it is not just this much in spiritual world. for this particular word explained. There are much more bigger understanding for this word Swadhyay. Many a times, this word Swadhyay has appeared in different literatures, in Vedas also, in different scriptures from India. Swamiji also has mentioned it a couple of places in Swarved. So in my opinion, Swarved literal meaning has self-study. Self-study doesn't mean that we are studying just some scripture. I think in my opinion, the Swadhyay is very much linked to the self-understanding, understanding of the self, basically. What is our activity? What and how we are reacting on one particular in one particular situation in one way or another. So it's not just studying or reading out the scriptures and understanding and doing brainstorming. Along with that, self-study means understanding the action and reaction of the self as well. In terms of the difference, whether it includes self-retrospection or not, yes, it does. Because ultimately, the objective of Swadhyay is not just to understand the concepts, rather, or additionally, it includes understanding the self also. So self-introspection is one of the important factor as far as we talk about Swadhyay. Saurabhji.
Thank you, Subhash. Let's bring in Simant into this discussion. Simant, what do you think is the purpose of Swadhyay, and why are we discussing this topic at all in this forum?
Right. Thanks, Saurabhji, for that question. Sadhguru Sadafaldev Ji Maharaj, in his book called Ashtang Yog Darpan, mentioned that, study of Vedas, Upanishads, Darshan Shastra to understand the vast gamut of science that exists between Supreme Almighty and the atoms is Swadhyay. So what he was stressing upon is the Tattva Bodh, the tenets and philosophy of Brahma Vidya Vihangam Yoga. For beginners, the purpose would be that people who are struggling with, let's say, a mind that has got repetitive thoughts or rush of thoughts, reading spiritual scriptures will start anchoring your awareness and channeling your energy into a higher purpose. So this mind diarrhea, will stop slowly. The reason is that wherever your awareness goes, your energy is flowing there. Energy by itself does not know what to do with it. For example, it is just like, a flowing water. It can grow weeds, it can grow flowers. The choice is really exercised by awareness. Secondly, a regular and disciplined study of spiritual scriptures is practice of austerity, tap of mind and speech. Our speech should be pleasant, it should be benevolent. In Santvani, it says, Shabd samhare boliye, Shabd ke haath na pao, ek shabd aushadhi kare, ek shabd kare ghav. So through regular chanting of verses of Swarved, equanimity is attained, calmness and composure of mind, which is undisturbed by experiences and emotions of good or bad. And lastly, in my view, on the purpose of Swadhyay, for Adhyatma seekers or spiritual seekers, it has got a profound purpose. Swamiji says in Swarved that Brahm Vidya do tattva hai, tattva gyan abhyas, prathama hi bodh tattvan kare, antar bhed abhyas. He says, first seek to understand the tattva, the tenets and philosophy of Brahma Vidya through reading Swarveda and scriptures of high order. He says that we should undertake the study to understand what are inert and conscious elements. How was this mortal world formed? What exists before creation? What exists after the creation? What exists after the destruction? And the knowledge should be seeked in such a way so that there is no point of any confusion. So in my view, these are approximately and roughly, three main purposes of Swadhyay. Back to you, Saurabh.
Thank you, Simant. I would probably ask Subhash also to comment on the same. Subhash, how do you think Swadhyay is related to meditation and spirituality, since Simant actually delved into the topic of spirituality? And what do you think, or what in your opinion does the Swarved say on this subject?
Thank you, Saurabh. Let me bring some more things into this. I think then it would be much more easier to understand. When I was young, I had been hearing many times the Ashtanga Yoga, and as Simant mentioned, Swamiji also has written a book, Yoga Darshan, on Ashtanga Yoga. In Ashtanga Yoga means there are 8 limbs of practice of yoga, and the first 2 of those limbs are called Yam and Niyam. One is linked to the disciplinary actions, and another one is linked to the moral values and other things related with social activities and like that. Swadhyay, the word, comes in niyam, means the disciplinary actions. There are 5 yamas and 5 niyamas prescribed in Ashtanga Yoga. And I think the 3rd or 4th element of niyam, the discipline, is Swadhyay. In niyam, that principles, there are 5 different subsections. I'm just telling the names. People might have been knowing Soch, which is the cleanliness, then Santosh, which is contentment, Tapa, as Simanji mentioned, the austerity, and Swadhyay, which says the study of the self and the good literatures, etc., and Ishwar Pranidhan, which is the surrenderness to the God. So these are the 5 disciplinary actions under niyam of 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. When we emphasize on this Swadhyay, I have seen many people, where it has been seen that they are practicing yoga, they are practicing meditation, they are practicing lots of other activities also. But important thing is what is happening inside. If I'm taking one simple example, if I am teaching my son, don't tell a lie, okay, because it's not a good habit, because that's how everyone know it. But if I myself is not practicing that principle, and I'm telling someone else, my son or whoever it is, don't tell a lie, and I myself is not practicing, that doesn't make any sense. So when self-study comes, when Swadhyay comes into the picture, here the emphasis is, it's not just what we are saying, what we are reading. The important thing is how much we are implementing it on ourselves. This will be known only when we do the Swadhyay, when we do the self-study. And these all knowledges and all these understandings comes from when we read out different scriptures. Swadhyay is not just alone activity. It is linked with satsang also. It is linked with, as you mentioned, meditation also. It is linked with other activities like doing seva and all those kind of things. So when we do Swadhyay, it is linked with many things, and it is very much internal. Shimanji very rightly mentioned the Doha from Swarved. The inner aspect is quite important. When we talk about meditation, then meditation is a process, of course, which is an inner activity. And when we practice meditation on a regular basis, it indeed helps us to do the introspection and study of the self, and at the same time reading out some scriptures to understand what the meditation is, how should we function, and whatever we are doing, whether we are doing it in a right way or not. These things need to be understood, analyzed. If there is a kid who has suppose joined a new office, one of the important point which is being told to that the new guy in the office is you have to do your self study also. It's not just spoon feeding that someone will do continuously. Okay, do this, do this, do this, do this. No, we have to put our effort as well, and that's how we learn. We know our mistakes, we know what are our strengths, where we lag behind, what further activities we need to do to put our effort to enhance ourselves. Whichever way we do, whether it's spiritual world or other world, we have to progress on. So meditation is one of the process which helps us to continue our journey on the Swadhyay, on the self-study also, and it strengthens us. Saurabh.
Thank you, Subhash. You started off with the spiritual aspect of Swadhyay, and towards the end, you also delved into the part of Swadhyay which deals with the material side of things. So I would like to bring in Simantji again here into this question. Simantji, what is in Swadhyay for me, the common man? Say I have nothing to do with spirituality. How do I benefit from Swadhyay?
Right. So there are two parts, to this question. One is, see, we all know that there is great power in associations, and we become the books we read, because reading is nothing more than actually having a conversation with the author itself. So for a beginner, or someone who is still a beginner in the spiritual quest, Swadhyay helps to anchor your awareness. See, when we talk about mind control is a bit of an abstract concept. And if you actually go down and think about it, it's basically about your awareness. So when you read a spiritual scripture or undertake Swadhyay with absolute devotion, your highest place, is stirred. And what we learn compels us, to take new action to create better results. And as we learn more, we can do more. Back to you, Subhash. Saurabh.
Thank you, Simantji. Subhash, I want to take you again into the realm of the mind. How does Swadhyay influence our minds and our thoughts, maybe our sanskars as well?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier also, just today, Swadhyay is quite a broader term, where the self-study uncovers our strength, our authenticity, then it uncovers our weakness, as well as the addictions, if somewhere here and there, the habit pattern, and all those kind of things. So when we talk about Swadhyay, and when we talk about meditation, when we talk about our self-development, it's all about linked to the self. The word self is coming all the time. So what is the meaning of this self? This self doesn't mean just the mind. It is beyond mind sometimes also, and many times it is beyond mind. So in Swarved, I'm taking one simple example from Swarved, where Swamiji has mentioned in second mandal and 7th chapter, the first couplet itself, he has mentioned here, Grahan karo gun jagat se, ay gun dekh na koi, ay gun dekho aap mein, tyag yatan kar soy. Which means, when we have to see this world So this couplet is basically folds us towards the positive activity, the positivity that in our day-to-day life, many a times we have seen that people talk about one or another person, how that person is good or bad. So here Swarvid mentions that when you have to accept, adapt something from this world, accept and adapt things which are good. And if you have to find the bad things, the bad habits, etc., look inside yours. You'll find everything inside. So that's basically coming as the self-retrospection inspection to understand what we are doing, what we are thinking, and whether we are sinking inside and outside or not. That is very important to know. So the mind is one of the important thing which need to be brought on the right way, on the right path. So when we talk about Swadhyay, when we talk about the mind, when we talk about the meditation, when we talk about the self-study, all these things are linked to each other. Usually, if I take my own example, I try to do few things like this. I have created one simple Excel for myself where I have put some of the activities which I do on a regular basis. And the other tab of the Excel sheet says what I should do. And then I, time to time, rank myself on the basis of my own understanding, on the basis of my own development to see how I am progressing. As simple, a very simple example is suppose anger. I'm just taking hypothetical example. Suppose anger. Many times we get angry here and there, but if one of the Swadhyay or one of the yamas and niyamas says that, no, you don't have to get angry just like that. You don't have to do some bad activities. You need to have control. Then I'll introspect myself. Okay, what is my activity if that kind of environment or situation arises in front of me? Am I controlled? Control doesn't mean that my activity outside. It's not just that. It's more on the inner side. So it may be possible that I'm not doing any activity outside, but inside I'm just on fire. That is also not a control. It is a little bit, but the control has to be from inside. So what I do, I try to rank myself at all different time points. What is the development on this particular item, on this particular topic? And that's how I see, I can understand myself, whether I am developing, progressing in the right way or not. And here again, the mind plays a role because it's the self, myself, who is studying self. So there is no any external factor we are talking here, although there can be multiple, like Swamiji, Sadhguru's blessings also is one of the important factor which helps us at all different time points to control ourselves, to gain and enhance ourselves. But when we talk about just the self-study, just ourselves, then lots of activities at our end becomes very important to do. Saurabh.
Thanks, Subhash. You actually delved into the practical aspects of Swadhyay, which was the next section, and we are actually going to delve into the practical aspects. So since you have covered a lot of ground already on the practical side of things, let me direct the next couple of questions to Simantji. Simantji, how should one do Swadhyay? I mean, is there a set method, or is each one to his or her own self as to how they want to do Swadhyay?
Right. Well, I can only talk about my experience on how I built this habit. Is when we're speaking about Swadhyay, we basically talking about self-study, and study should always be directional on what you expect to learn out of this time being spent. And Sadhgurudev created 10 rules in a book called Niyamali when you're staying in ashram, and one of the rules he's put in that every day in morning and evening we should undertake Swadhyay of scriptures. Because, as I mentioned, that there is great power in whatever we associate ourselves with. So if you expect to engage in regular self-introspection, taking inventory of what's going around, in your life, and what set of goals you expect to achieve, there has to be periodicity, regularity in your Swadhyay. So the best way to integrate, Swadhyay in our day-to-day life is to set time, both in the morning and evening, before you take, your food. And once, this gets into our DNA, it almost like, having breakfast. You won't leave your home without breakfast. In the same way, without, engaging in a very dedicated and devoted study, for 10, 15, 20 minutes in the morning and evening, you would almost feel that your day was not worth it. So that's, one of the ways of making this almost your habit and your daily lifestyle.
Great. You already covered the next question, which I had in mind, as to how to make Swadhyay a regular habit. So let's pose this question to Subhash-ji. Subhash-ji, what in your opinion is the right time to do Swadhyay? And do we need to do it on a one-off or a regular basis? And if it's a regular thing to do, then how do we make it a regular habit?
Yeah, so now actually we are talking about practicality. So Simant ji mentioned very rightly, one of the point I'm picking from there is, when we do Swadhyay, the most important thing for everyone is the time. It takes time. It needs to invest some time. It's not just 1 minute, 2 minutes. Okay, let me think about what I'm doing, how I'm doing. No, it's not like that. It requires some of the time if we are doing the Swadhyay or the self-study. In terms of regularity, as the 8 wings mentioned, the niyama, it's a disciplinary action, right? So when we talk about Swadhyay, it is one kind of disciplinary action, not to be very much stringent. That's fine. There can be some relaxation, because many a times we have different situations around us, but more and more we are sticking to it as a discipline, it would be much more better. So in terms of the period, how many times, how many minutes we should invest time for Swadhyay, there is no any hard and fast rule as per se. It all depends on individuals' ability, individuals' capacity also, because in today's world, if you see, people have different working time zones, working lifestyle is also different, but whoever is wherever and whichever way they are working on, I'm sure every day, I think, including doing meditation and other things also, every day people must invest at least 15 minutes or half an hour to do the self-study. Doesn't matter whether we do in the early morning or in the afternoon or in the night, although our scriptures mention that the best self-study is in the morning. In the afternoon, daytime, it's okay, fine, but should not be encouraged too much in the night time. But it depends again, something is better than nothing. If someone has to start at, maybe not possible for everyone to do things doing in the Brahma Muhurt or due time or early morning, because many times people have different habits. They just start the day just getting up, freshing up, taking breakfast and run away to the office. It's possible, right? So, but again, if we have to bring things in practice, actually in practice, we have to put our effort and we have to put our time also. In terms of how many times in a week, or if should it be done every day, if possible, if we can do every day, it is the best thing. During my childhood, I remember my father used to tell me, Subhash, make a habit that whenever you finish your whole day, you, before going to sleep, you close your eyes and try to remember what you did in the whole day, where the mistakes were, where the good points were. Identify it. If possible, note it down. It will help you in your future. So this is a discipline. This is the disciplinary action which connects to ourselves. Many times, if we don't do such kind of things, we don't remember yesterday what we ate. We don't remember, right? Whom we met, unless and until we met someone very important. On a day-to-day basis, we are just running our life. We are just going through on a specific format on our day-to-day life. We don't remember what is happening. We don't emphasize on what is not happening like that. So when we talk about Swadhyay, when we talk about self-study, there has to be self-discipline. Set out the time. Doesn't matter half an hour or 10 minutes or 5 minutes. The good start will bring lots of different types of time management at the same time also. So starting with 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour on a daily basis, even if not daily, practice it on an alternate day basis. Slowly, it will automatically give you the understanding and the value. Oh, it's actually very, very real, and it helps a lot. Like in our office also, what do? We set out our tasks, right? We set out our calendar. We set out, okay, what are the pending works? What are the activities which we can postpone for next time, next day, or something like that. Similarly, when we talk about self-development, when we talk about self-study, when we talk about self-introspection, we have to note down few things. So if we note it down, write it down, maybe a personal diary kind of thing, cut it out if you finish out something, note it down if you have to act on something. It helps a lot, I think, Saurabh.
Thank you, Subhash. My next question to Simant is that, are there any precautions one should observe while doing Swadhyay?
Okay, so I think, as I mentioned before, was that, reading should be directional, and one needs to establish, clear objectives and not just engage in mindless reading, all over the place. So I think, that's one precaution, because there's so much to read, and we live in an age of technology where information is just being poured from everywhere. So unless we are very clear about what we intend to achieve out of Swadhyay, you might just become a sack of too much information with not much actionable stuff coming out of it. So I think that's one very important precaution on Swadhyay. Number two is one should read, from authors, who have some established credibility in what, you're talking or you're reading. And if I can connect that discussion, back to our spiritual quest, again, we know that there are so many spiritual scriptures, especially India being, the homeland of spirituality. There's so much been said and written, all over the place. But a lot of these scriptures, have been distorted, by translations, by people who themselves, do not have any realized experience. And that's where, scriptures like Swarved, score so high, because, Swarved is, a first-hand experience of Sadgurudev himself. And he was very quick to ask and direct, Pratamachari to do a translation, before it becomes subject of distorted translation. So when, we read from eternal truth, okay, such, reading of Swadhyay, of eternal truth, results in clear results in that quest. So to me, these are some important, precautions, to exercise. when you're engaging in Swadhyay. Back to you, Saurabh.
Thank you, Simanji. The next question or a set of questions is directed towards Subhashji. Subhashji, does Swadhyay need to be supplemented with, say, a mentor or a teacher or a friend or a guru?
Yes, this is very, very important question, I think, Saurabh. Thank you very much for this question. I'll pick this up with what Simanji mentioned previously. When we talk about Swadhyay, and when we talk about making a habit of doing Swadhyay, I mean, my first request to everyone is that don't take it lightly, first thing, because it's a serious issue. Especially this can be measured when we have rough time, especially if we have stressful situation or we have some situation in such a way that we are in difficult position. The first thing at that time point which comes to us would be, okay, let's skip this one. And the first thing will come as a Swadhyay, be it reading Swarved or reading other scriptures or doing self-retrospection. Oh no, I'm tired. Let us skip this time today. We'll do next time. I'll do next time. Something like this. That should not happen. There should be some seriousness involved, included in the activity of Swadhyay, definitely. And from my own experience, if I say, as Simanji also mentioned, Swarved, reading Swarved is one of the most important thing I have seen which has impacted my own life. I mean, whenever we try to do things on our own, and many a times we are not capable enough to do things, but Swamiji also says that everything, all the power of Swamiji has been inbuilt in Swarved. When we read Swarved, magically it impacts us, impacts us in a very different way. We cannot measure that just by one instrument or something. It just helps from all the aspects, from all the sides. So when we do Swadhyay, we need to be serious on it. And many a times still, even if we are serious, we get deviated from one side to another. And coming back to the point again may take some time. So from here, if I say, we definitely need a guide. We definitely need an experienced guide whom we can trust on, whom we can surrender to. If possible, then it would become the best thing. And that's how, if anyone is being guided by Sadgurudev himself, there is nothing better than that. So even if we do Swadhyay, Swarved itself is the best guide for anyone in this world. If someone is trying to reading it out, understanding it, following it, trying to implement things in the life itself, which may be difficult for each and every one, but definitely there are many things which we can implement in our life on day-to-day basis. Along with Swarved, a mentor, a guide, which someone can consult on a regular basis, which he or she can give his own input or her input in terms of his own experience, what he himself has done, herself has done. Or I think again, getting the closeness with Sadguru himself is not that easy all the times, being in face-to-face. But whenever we get some time, even single word from Sadguru impacts us a lot. So yes, Saurabhji, in terms of having mentor, a guide, a guru is one of the most important factor when we talk about Swadhyay, because that's what it gives the right direction.
Thank you, Subhashji. And finally, the last question from my side before we open up for Q&A from the audience. This is a question that is directed towards both of you panelists, and please feel free to chip in with your comments. The question is, can Swadhyay lead to depression and negative behavior, especially as one discovers his or her fault lines and follies during the process of Swadhyay? And if you think it can lead to depression and negative behavior, how does one deal with it?
Yeah, I'll take the first on this, Simanji, if you allow me.
Please.
So yeah. So this is, I think, Saurabhji, you have brought this point from, I think, each and every one of the people who exist from the core inside, because this point itself is very sensitive, because when we talk about Swadhyay, in first time, if somebody hears, oh, Swadhyay and depression, oh, doesn't match. But if we think very closely, if we think very deeply, then there is a possibility. I'm sure there is a possibility that when we start doing Swadhyay, learning, trying to understand, doing things, then a person can get depressed, because at one time he may realize that, oh no, what I have done so far in my life, my 30 year, my 20 year, my 40 year, my 50 year of the whole life just get wasted, and I did not do anything. Everything was available. What I have done so far. So if a person just stick at that point, there is a possibility that negativity starts coming to it, and he may have depression, he may have less willpower probably. But at that time point itself, I think the mentor helps a lot. The presence of mentor, but of course at that time point the person need to share something. He or she should not just keep things to himself or herself. The person need to share what the difficulty he or she has with the mentor also. And I'm sure with that development, with that discussion, that negativity, that depression will simply get eradicated. So yes, it is true that negativity may appear. Sometimes we compare ourselves with others also. It's a natural phenomena, right? A human tendency that, oh, that person is doing this, I'm not able to do, I am not capable enough, how do I do, I am left behind. All these kind of things can appear in anyone's mind. Anyone means anyone. And when the time comes to do self-studies, then all these weaknesses may appear time to time. But at that time point, if the person doesn't stay strong, if the willpower is not up to that mark, or if he does not have any mentor or guru or somebody to guide him, there is a possibility that the person can go deep and deep in depression. But again, even in those situations, I always recommend, I mean, to myself also, in under any circumstances or any case, don't leave reading Swarved. There is a little bit limitation right now. Swarved is in Hindi, but I think it is very soon going to be available in other languages also. So sticking to Swarved, reading it out repeatedly, it simply brings lots and lots of positivity inside and outside around us. Saurabhji.
Simantji, would you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I think Subhash covered really well, that the reality is that we have become a bundle of very conditioned reflexes, and we are constantly being triggered by people and circumstances into outcomes of our behavior. And but again, as we were discussing that Swadhyay, what happens is that we suddenly start diverting the attention to ourselves. And many of us, are not, I would say, very comfortable with it, because, we've been leading our life so outwardly, and, everything has been focused, for someone who's not us. It could be your family, it could be your office, it could be your community. So, when you start engaging in regular self-introspection, we start, diverting this attention back to us. And in rare circumstances, it can, lead to, a sudden shock, especially if a lot of time has passed. And that's where I think, we discussed that there is need, for a coach. Everyone needs a coach in whichever aspect of your life. If you're at a workplace, you need a mentor. If you go to gym, you need an instructor. In the same way, for our life, we need a life coach, and that life coach is no better than the Sadguru himself. So yes, this should always be a guided process, so that you're always within the 3S discussed before, which is sadhana, seva, and satsang. Back to you, Saurabhji.
Thank you, Simantji, and thank you, Subhashji, for this wonderful discussion. And just trying to go through the question list from the audience. And a first glance seems to suggest that most of the questions have been answered. I'll just read out the questions, and probably if you guys believe that some of them probably deserve to be expanded upon in terms of answering, then you can do it. I'll just go through it quickly. So Abhaji from Australia and Rakesh Nathji Tiwari from India, they ask, does Swarved in Vihangam Yoga terminology mean self-study of the Swarved? And here the related question then is that if it is indeed, then what is the Swarved and how does it help the reader in the process of Swadhyay? And the conflicting question is, can one not make do with the reading of other scriptures or spiritual scriptures other than Swarved? So this is one set of questions. Then Abhinav Ji from Australia has a bouquet of questions. He asks, what is true knowledge? What kind of things do we need to know about when we talk about absolute truth? What is absolute truth in its various manifestations? How can we know the things which we should focus upon and learn more about if we are already not aware of them? And he finally asks, how has Swadhyay helped you in your own life? Then Vijay Ji has asked a question from New Jersey in the USA. And he asks, what type of book is worth reading for true spiritual growth? And Priyanka Ji from Europe wants the panelists to share some practical examples of what Swadhyay is in real day-to-day life. And then she goes on to ask how we can live life more consciously and purposefully. So just going through these various questions, if there are any concluding thoughts in your minds, I would open this to both the panelists.
Right. I would, take some of those questions and try to be as brief as possible, considering the time that's left. I think that question on, there's a question, I think that relates to how, Swarved, scores as, against the other scriptures. And and I would really request, the audience that, to be able to, understand what scores, or the importance of one over the other, one should have undertaken, very involved reading and understanding. In my view, one of the startling revelations that Sadhguru Sadafal Devji Maharaj brought about in Swarved is this whole concept of 6 eternal everlasting entities, where we talked about Nityanadi, Shat Vastu. And in my limited reading of all the other scriptures, this has been an area which was always very gray, where everyone talked about only 3 entities, and Swamiji came and talked about, the divine conscious entity of Sadguru, which was not touched ever, very clearly in any other scripture. So that is one, profound reason why, Swarved's, Swadhyay brings about, very clear philosophy and tenets. One talked about only 3 entities. Right. And other thing is, we can't deny that, Veds and Upanishads, which are also profound scriptures, are written in Sanskrit. And unfortunately, Sanskrit has not remained our first language. And so Swadhyay is difficult. And again, Swarved scores, very high on this because it's written in simple couplets and it has got translation in Hindi, which is one of the important reasons why there has been such widespread prachar, in India. So this is, in my view, some of the reasons, how Swarved and its self-study, scores and makes it easier, if I can say, against other scriptures.
Thank you, Simanji. Subhash, any concluding thoughts?
I'm just a little bit concerned about the time, but I think when we talk about different scriptures and including Swarved also, we have to understand quickly is that all the scriptures are experience of someone. Like Swarved itself is the complete spiritual experience of Sadhguru Sadafal Devji Maharaj, and we all know that he had not taken anything from here and there. Everything, whatever has been mentioned in Swarved is his own real experience. So in my opinion, I think if we pick up any scripture. It's fine as long as it is original and we are able to understand what exactly it says. The problem starts, I think, when we start interpreting it at a different level. And many times it has been seen, I think, that the interpretation of the sayings in that scriptures deviates from one to another, and the reason behind that is the level of interpretations are different. And here the confusion comes, which one to go, which one not to go. So on that basis, I think I would say we can pick up any scripture. It's fine as long as we are able to understand what it says. Whether we are able to implement that in our life or not, that is of course our responsibility. The easiness with Swarved is that it is all linked with our day-to-day life, complete spiritual, we call it encyclopedia of spirituality. And of course, those who are able to understand Hindi, it is very much easy for them to deep down into it and understand and implement it on their day-to-day life. But one of the important aspects which I would like to tell is, whichever scripture we read, just reading is not enough. You must practice something. That's why Swamiji also says that even if we are doing Swadhyay, even if we are doing Seva, practicing meditation and few other things also is very important. So I'd like to close here, Saurabhji, because we have limited time. Maybe we can discuss more things on this sometime later on, I think.
Thank you very much, panelists Subhash ji and Simant ji. With this, we have come to the close of today's panel discussion. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. Please do tune in same time next week for another interesting session of the Vihangam Yoga Global Online Satsang. Thank you.
सदा फल